Greater Idaho movement, Greater Idaho. I love the concept. They are seeking support from President-elect Trump, new administration on border move talks. You got to switch over between Sleepy Joe and, Trump. So they've got a bunch of approval from 13, 14 counties within, Eastern Oregon. They're going to try and lump them into just a big Idaho. I wish they'd take half of Washington. I wish they'd take 2/3 of Washington. I'd probably go live there. I'd go live in Greater Idaho. Let's check out what they got going on. Here we go. Here's kind of a quick update on where we sit with the whole Greater Idaho movement.
Voters in Crook County, Oregon have become the latest Oregon county to vote in favor of becoming what's called Greater Idaho. So far, 13 eastern Oregon counties have passed a measure in support of moving the state line, including Malheur and Baker counties. The goal is to get 14 counties and 3 partial counties to sign on to this. Last year, the Idaho legislature passed its own measure to begin talks with Oregon lawmakers about the idea. However, it would take approval of both state legislatures and also Congress to make moving the state line a reality.
Look at that, though. I mean, let's just take a quick peek at that. So here's your Idaho now, and you're talking about taking 2/3 of Eastern Oregon, basically all of Eastern Oregon, and just whoop. I wish they'd take that, run that same damn line straight up north and go like that to state of Washington. And I'd go from over here to over here. Greater Idaho? Yeah, you bet. You bet I would do that. Now, I mean, if I didn't move to Texas or somewhere else, right? Because, living here on the western side of Washington State, it's a drubbing. It is a continual drubbing. If you lean anywhere reasonable, or I shouldn't say reasonable, there's a bunch of reasonable Democrats here. But if you are, have any kind of thought consciousness that leans somewhat even tiny bit conservative, it's a tough state to live in because all of our political leadership has just gone down this crazy train road. And, they're all gearing up to do battle with Trump. And he's just trying to throw a bunch of illegals out of the country. And he's trying to make up for all the messes that Biden's created over the last 4 years. But, as the world turns, we've got this deal going on here. Let's take a look and see. What do we got going on? Leaders of the Greater Idaho movement said Wednesday they're asking President Trump and his incoming administration. Let's give you the article. How about that? How about we do that? Yeah, there we go. Leaders of the Greater Idaho movement said Wednesday they are asking President Trump and his incoming administration to get involved in supporting border talks between Idaho and Oregon. I don't think he's going to do that. He's just going to let them work it out. It's got to get to that point where, it's seeking congressional approval. I think we're a long ways out from that, but I support the movement. You know what I mean? I just do. It makes sense. And that's why I don't think it'll happen anytime soon anyway. Because it makes sense. It's practical. Everybody in Eastern Washington, everybody in Eastern Oregon, people in Northern California, they don't believe in what, here in Washington, it's Olympia. We've got Jay Inslee running things. We don't, believe in 99% of what he puts out. People in Northern California, Eastern California, they don't believe in gruesome Newsom. And in Oregon, that is probably the most stellar example. Eastern Oregon is a wildly different country than the coast. Where you've got leadership like Portland. I mean, it's you hate to say it, but Portland has just been a dumpster fire politically. And folks that want to get out, that could get out, I think, there's this movement. It makes sense. In a letter released Wednesday, Citizens for Greater Idaho praised the former and future president as a practical problem solver whose support could bring a peaceful resolution to Oregon's longstanding east-west divide and cement Trump's legacy as a peacemaker and transformational president. Well, I mean, that's a nice way of buttering Trump up, right? Will that happen? Why not take the shot? You're going down, these roads of let's make this happen. Why not get Trump's approval? Trump would approve of this. It's just he's got so many different things on his plate right now. Is he really going to focus on this before it gets, even further down the road than probably where it is and where it needs to be? Hard to say, right? It's become clear to the people of Eastern Oregon that our own state government is not going to listen to us and enact what we voted for, which is moving the border. And so much of that comes down to revenue. Tax revenue. That revenue is just going to, whoop, yep, all right, here's Oregon. Yeah. And, you've got, you've got voting involved in there because now all of a sudden you're going to be changing the population. Bunch of different stuff that has to be considered. And those are just literally like the 10,000 foot view. What are we looking at here? Just some of the major type concepts that would have to be addressed, and the practicality of those. We'll have to see, right? But we believe that President Trump, whom the people here overwhelmingly voted for, can help us achieve the self-determination we have a right to, bringing attention and to support our cause. 100% agree. 100% agree. But what's interesting is that, none of these states, they're not even acknowledging that this is a thing, are they? They're like, what? What are you talking about? Nothing to see here. It's all good. It's all good. I mean, you've literally got, state of Washington telling us and Oregon telling us things are fine. We're doing good. We're doing okay. And you're like, okay, if you are a liberal-leaning, virtue-signaling individual, you're doing okay. The rest of us kind of see what's going on and are like, that doesn't really jive with our belief system. Yeah, not down with that. Not down with that. President of the movement, Mike McCarter, agreed. For the last 4 years, we've been going directly to the people to hear what they want. They've made clear that they want to start border discussions. They've also reached out to Oregon legislature and Governor Kotek. There's another governor. You know what? This is what the people on the coast in Oregon want to have. They want to have Governor Kotek's, but gotten no response. Oregon state government hasn't been willing to listen to Eastern Oregonians, but we believe the president will. Now, I think Trump will listen, and he'll make some comments, but he's not going to do anything. We're just not there yet. That is my total opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Greater Idaho movement began putting votes to counties in 2020 and seeks to move the Oregon-Idaho border westward so that traditionally conservative eastern counties would join the state of Idaho, which the movement says better matches Eastern Oregonians' values. So far, 13 counties have passed their measures. You know what it comes down to is I've spent a lot of time in Eastern Oregon, Sun River, taking my kids there. Spent a lot of time in Eastern Washington. If you're a Washington State resident, you go over there for all kinds of stuff. And, state sports. We always had our big track meets in, was it Moses Lake? Wenatchee, one of those cities that you've probably never heard of. You're like, where is that? But a lot of vacation spent over there. You've got all kinds of lakes. You got all kinds of, it's cool stuff. You go through the mountains. But when you come from Western Washington and you go through the mountains, you go through the Cascade Mountains, which is what's that bisecting line is, both through Oregon and Washington. Well, you got all those big mountains, right? You got Rainier, you got Hood, you got St. Helens, you got Mount Adams. Those are big cascade volcanoes. That line, when you go east of that line, it's conservative. It's conservative because it's not big city populations. Big city populations that depend on handouts, those are in Olympia, they're in Tacoma, they're in Seattle, they're in Bellingham. You got none of that out in the sticks, out in the boonies. What you do have, you have Trump signs. And I think Eastern Oregon is even further down the political spectrum because it's a bigger geographic area and it's just more folks that aren't in line with all of this ridiculousness that is based upon Democrats giving away taxpayers' money to people not working for it. Here's your tent, here's your blanket, here's your food, here's your crack pipe, all that kind of stuff. You just don't have that in areas where people are more self-dependent. And that's what it comes down to. And as you drive, I can drive right from where I am right now at my desk here in Bellevue. In 40 minutes, I can be at the top of Snoqualmie Pass, and you are headed east into a different land. And it is, I mean, you literally start to see the Trump signs pop up because good Lord, nobody here in Western Washington has a Trump sign. I mean, I've got a Trump little tiny pin that I don't wear around because I don't want to get assaulted. You got enough, nut jobs running around here that their heads just popped off. How about that 30-something-year-old woman married to a trans dude that killed her dad after having an argument over turning off the lights on election night, killed her dad with an ice axe. That was here in Seattle. Just whacked her dad to death with an ice axe because the election, was so, she just didn't want another 4 years of Trump. You've got some real nut jobs that are politically based, might be, otherwise totally okay people. But you get into Eastern Washington, you get into Eastern Oregon, you get into Northern California, and there's parts of, Illinois, big geographic parts of Illinois that are undergoing the same thing. I apparently butchered a handful of the stats on the Illinois kind of secession, or not secession. I shouldn't say that was one of my mistakes that I did make, working through what I need to do there. But what we've got going on is you've just got a bunch of people that are like, hey, this doesn't mesh with our political viewpoints. None of this meshes. So what do we do to make this work? Well, recreate the state lines and you make Eastern Washington, Eastern Oregon. I wish they'd do Eastern Washington, but they won't because Greater Idaho is already so far down the road. And that is because I think politically, Oregon, specifically Portland, those areas have they've gone off the deep end. Let's be honest. That's how you end up with Antifa and Black Lives Matter, literally trying to burn down federal buildings and political leadership. You've got, Mayor Ted out there doing the pictures, doing the PR event with Antifa. This is the greatest thing ever. And his city is still recovering. You've still got a downtown core in Portland that has just been whittled out because of ridiculousness like that. So you've got populations that are really looking to make a change, and they're asking Trump for help. I'd give it a shot. I'd say, hey, Mr. Trump, what do you say? Help us out here over on the West Coast. We need your help. SOS. Have you seen what happened at, Chop and Chaz in Portland? And he has, because he offered to send in the feds, offered to send in National Guard. Oh, didn't like that, did they? No. That's the drill we live here in Washington State and Oregon and California, and, same deal in Illinois. You've got areas that just don't agree politically and they're looking to do something. And I support them 100%. Will it happen anytime soon? I don't think so. But you know what? Hey, I'll podcast about it all day long. Thanks for being here. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now.